Well, hello. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello. Hello.
Hey, guys. Hey, happy thoughts. Hey, Wiccan. Happy Saturday, YouTube. We thought we'd come on and share some thoughts about world events, I guess, and obviously the summit between Trump and Putin, and the consequences, I suppose. And like we said before, I think it's kind of interesting because Cheryl and I obviously are opposite sides of the Atlantic, so we have different vantage points on all this. Hey, hybrid. Hey, friend. Hybrid, so here for this. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be. Everyone's got to be thinking about this, have some kind of opinion either way. Hey, stand up. Stand up is so proud of Cheryl because Cheryl was there. This took place in our home state, our hometown, Anchorage.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you were on the ground, Cheryl, right?
I
And what's
was.
more, not just protesting, you are our roving reporter.
Yeah, kind of.
So Cheryl got a couple of interviews with some of the people that were there protesting. So I'll have a listen to them a bit later, I think. But I don't know where to begin on this, to be honest. What's your general thoughts about this particular summit taking place in Alaska, Cheryl? Off the bat.
It's an atrocity. It's disgusting.
Cheryl struggles sometimes to let her feelings be known, guys.
Yeah,
we might have to encourage her to really tell us what she thinks.
Yeah. So my opinion comes from a lot of different angles. So just those words are the top tier, but there's many things that feed into that. Yeah, so there's that. So what's your opinion?
It's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
There's no other way to look at it for so many reasons. I mean, even if you look at it just from an aesthetic point of view, and you compare and contrast the events when Zelensky went to visit Trump compared to this, it's staggering that a war criminal, according to the International Court, can be given such a red carpet treatment when he would be arrested in other countries around the world, for one. And we all remember how Zelensky was treated in the Oval Office and eventually thrown out, right? And just the whole spectacle of it, the honor and respect, the red carpet, the fighter jets, the handshakes, sharing the ride and the beast Cadillac and the smiles, and then the repercussions being apparently that Putin has gotten every single item on his list that he wanted from that meeting, and Trump didn't. No deal, right?
Yeah. No. We talked about this. I have no problem saying words, but I have a problem trying to articulate my because my feelings are just so I don't get me wrong, I would be just as passionate and infuriated, regardless of where it was, but the fact that it was here. Um, I, so
It's a bit of
going,
an edge to it, doesn't it?
yes, going back, I'm Gen X. I was around during the Cold War. And especially being raised in Alaska, you know, whether it was warranted or valid or not, we lived with that dark cloud all growing up about the mushroom cloud that, if the USSR, which is what it was then, was going to um, go to war with the United States, of course they're going to take Alaska out first, right? So we just lived with that hanging over our heads all the time. So even though things kind of warmed up a little bit once the Cold War fell apart, but in Alaska, I can tell you the general consensus, it didn't. We don't hate Russians, but that fear that we grew up with of the USSR / what now is Russia, that never really went away. I mean, we were always kind of side-eyeing them, right? And so the fact that, and not just that, but he's an international criminal, war criminal. He came onto American land, and not just that, he came to Alaska, the closest thing to Russia. And he came to our largest military installation, the front line defense against if something were to happen with Russia. And he was allowed not just, in America, but on a military installation. I mean, it's just mind boggling that this person who most of the world doesn't like was allowed to do this. And so
while bombs were falling in Ukraine.
Yeah, literally while they were meeting Ukraine again, there were more attacks on Ukraine. So the one thing that comes out of it is, even though Alaska is a red state, it's not necessarily a MAGA state, but it's a red state. The one thing that I can't put a number on, but just people that I know and seeing things in groups, in Alaska group, like 95% of Alaskans, regardless of who they support, whether you're Democrat, Republican, MAGA, whatever, the one thing, nobody wanted Putin here. Nobody. And this may sound petty, but Putin is constantly, and he has been doing this for years and years and years, constantly saying he wants Alaska back. He tells people Alaska was stolen, which is not the case. Well, it was a steal of a deal, but he really wants Alaska back, and Alaska really doesn't take kindly to that. So
I think it's hard for people to take that serious. Like, people think that he's just joking or whatever, but he's literally said this for 30 years.
Yeah, he's not joking, and Alaskans don't. Even if he is joking, it's like, don't fucking joke like that. That's not fucking funny, and we don't like
you. There's a reason behind the threat. I don't think he intends to do anything about it, for sure, but there's a strategy behind those threats that come up now and again, for sure.
Yeah, and so, like I said, the majority of Alaskans have no tolerance for that kind of bullshit. They're just like, right. Fuck you, blah, 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 blah. So the fact that this particular person came here, it kind of... it kind of pissed a lot of people off. Just to let you know, when we start talking about the protests and stuff that went on, there was a warm welcome for our President Trump. They had yesterday during the second protest yesterday that I was at. They had a warm welcome for him at a really busy intersection here in Anchorage. And from the videos I've seen, my daughter drove by and she texted me and she was like, hey, we just drove by and there's hardly anybody there. And I've seen some videos. There really was not. There was probably like a handful, like 20 or 30 people. Again, that goes back to they were there to welcome Trump because, they've been drinking the Kool-Aid. But there was not any pro-Putin. The most that I've seen or heard was like people were just, even the Trump supporters were just hoping that, well, not hoping. They believed that their cult leader could actually broker this peace deal. And they had no doubt that, he could do this because he's the man. So again, the one thing that across the board here that people are saying is everybody just wants the war in Ukraine to end. Again, we know how it can end, but there's different ways people think it should end, but that was the main thing. So Putin was not necessarily welcomed here, which I will take that as a win.
Yeah. And it's just on the Republican thing. There's a world of difference between what was traditionally thought of as Republican compared to what we seem to have now in control, right? Under Trumpism, there's something different from what traditionally was thought of as being Republican, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like what seems to be the policy of Trump with the Ukraine war is an extension of the America First new ideology that's coming along. But the thought of like acquiescing to an authoritarian like Putin in Ukraine is the last thing in the world a traditional Republican would be in favor of, right?
Right.
That's why Ukraine's kind of in this position right now, because Ukraine was encouraged by the West, by the US, by Republicans, by Democrats, because they wanted to join the West. They wanted to have closer ties to the West through the EU and eventually through NATO, through that defense, right? And that was a democratic choice of the Ukrainians. So the thought that traditional Republicans are going to be happy about this, it can't sit well with them, right?
It doesn't. It doesn't. And just like what Hybrid's saying, it's no different than how Trump has been running around. He wants Greenland. He wants Canada. It sounds an awful lot like what Putin says. He wants Alaska. That's one thing that I want to at least Canada. They stand every time Trump would say that. In Canada, they'd be like, "Oh fuck." Putin says he wants Alaska. Trump just never even addresses it. Like, wait, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? What is going on? Which is why I can tell you guys too. There was a lot of chatter in all kinds of groups, all over different platforms. It was like, he's going to give us back to Russia, isn't he? That's what we really. I didn't, but a lot of people really thought, because to me that seemed like that's just stupid. He's not going to give us back. His whole friggin' drill baby drill, that's Alaska right there.
I think that's beyond even Trump.
Right, but again, him being underestimated is what got us where we are right now, because people underestimated the level of shit that he wants to do and tries to do and is doing. So, I mean, it's a crazy world. It's basically nothing's off the table. Nothing's off the table with this guy. I mean, I'm glad to report, as of this morning, I did not wake up as a Russian, so that's cool. So, yeah. Yesterday was good. When did you want to talk about the protest now, or do you want to talk about something else first?
No, get into the protest.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody's noticed that we did a lot of protests yesterday. The main theme of it is we did not want Ukraine. Oh, thank you, salty bitch. We did not want Ukraine, specifically Ukraine, to think that Alaska is okay with this. Alaska, you guys from, the lower 48 probably know. People forget. I mean, shit, Trump mentioned twice he was going to be meeting Putin in Russia because he doesn't even know where the fuck we are. So we're not on the national stage very much. We don't have the population. We do our protests, like for the No Kings, like we broke records for protests across the state. We had like over 24 towns and villages that took part in it. We had I don't know. I've heard 5 to 7,000 people in Anchorage alone, which is a lot because we're not a big population up here. So,
Yeah.
and we only get, 3 electoral votes. Us in Hawaii are the ones where the last one's counted. So by the time that we get counted with our piddly little 3 electoral votes, the election's over. So people kind of forget about us, but it's important. It was very important for us to make sure that Ukraine knew that we are not okay with this. We're not okay with Putin coming here. We're not okay with Trump, but and that we support Ukraine, and we're not on the bandwagon because I think most of the time, especially with this new administration, there's a lot of anti-Ukraine stuff. Like you said, how he was treated at the White House. And we want them to know because, the media doesn't necessarily report on a lot of the pro-Ukrainian things. So we wanted to let them know, like, as Alaskans, we are so not okay with this. So there were protests all over the state. I can't speak about the ones all over the state because I actually haven't even had time to look at how many towns, villages took part in it. But But for Anchorage, there was one Thursday night. It was at the corner of 2 of our busiest streets in Midtown. There was one yesterday morning at 8:30 a.m. outside the Government Hill. So in Anchorage, we have 3. We have 3 gates to get onto Jayber. Jayber is the Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. Back in the day, we used to have the Air Force Base Elmendorf. We had the Army Post Richardson. They combined them and it's called Jayber. There's 3 entrances within Anchorage that you can get onto the base. And they closed 2 down and they had the one open. And that's the one where it was a small group. I think there was probably like 20 or 30 of us. And that's fine. We knew that they were probably flying into Jayber. So it's not like that they were coming. Just to give you guys a little bit of knowledge, the guy that organized that, he's not part of any group. It's just a guy. He went to West Point, and one of his West Point classmates, they went through, went through the military together. They were both deployed. They saw combat over in Iraq and Afghanistan and all the things. And then when this war happened in Ukraine, his friend Andrew had joined the Ukrainian army to go over there and help fight. And unfortunately, his friend was killed over in Ukraine. So this was more of a personal thing for him. He wanted to do this in honor of his friend Andrew, to basically protest Putin coming here. So we went to the gate. So that was at 8:30. That was for couple of hours. Then they had another one, a organized one by the group called Stand Up Alaska, who organizes most of our protests. That one was downtown at noon. The really cool thing about that is one of the largest Ukrainian flags in the world. Do you remember how many I told you it was?
Oh, I can't remember. It was huge, though, right?
It was huge. I think it was like, I'm trying to remember numbers. Like 40 meters or something, which
165 feet.
Yeah. So that was sent. Yeah, that was sent by.
How are you?
Oh yeah, that was sent by. I did look it up. It's a nonprofit group somewhere in the lower 48 that they use for a lot of their protests. They sent it to Alaska specifically for us to use. So we had the protest downtown, and then we walked to what we call Delaney Park Strip. It's in the middle of town, and we unrolled it. It was huge, super huge. Thank goodness it was light. I was thinking like it was going to be canvas, so it was going to be really heavy, but it was not. Really super cool. You couldn't really go anywhere in Anchorage yesterday and not see Ukrainian flags flying in support. I know a lot of Republicans were kind of bothered by that. Like, you should only be displaying American flags. Oh, shut the fuck up. We're not, giving an oath to Ukraine. We're just showing support. I personally bought about 100 handheld little Ukrainian flags, really cheap, and I was handing them out at the protest. I literally gone within like 3 minutes. It wasn't even 5 minutes. So it was really cool. So I went to there was another protest last night at 5:30. I did not go to that one. I was pretty much done by then, pretty wore out. It had been a really long 24 hours. So yeah, so that's what happened just here in Anchorage.
Yeah, and just to go along with that, I can play some videos. I think this first video is from the first day. Someone just driving past, just so some of you guys that have not seen it can get a kind of idea.
All right, guys, this is Anchorage, Alaska. Putin is arriving, and so is all of everybody else. Hell yeah. Look at this. Fuck Trump, funk Putin. This is what I'm talking about. What's up?
Oops.
Just a little FYI too, guys. I always take my cowbell to all the protests. So anytime you hear a cowbell in the background, that's me. Because for some reason I seem to be the only one that does that. My son was telling me there were 2 other people yesterday, but I did not hear any other cowbells. It was always just me. Just saying.
That's really cool. And this will show the flag that you were talking about.
We stand up. The camera panned up. Peace for Ukraine. Peace for Ukraine. Peace for Ukraine.
That's the flag, isn't that crazy? My
It
God.
was huge. It was huge. And yeah, we rolled it out. I wasn't gonna be in there holding it, just because I knew, being super short, that I probably wouldn't be much help. Again, I thought it was gonna be canvas. It wasn't. So I was there holding it, and my friend and my daughter were on the other side, and they got a picture of me. I literally, do you guys remember Kilroy? That goofy little character from, the 80s, where it looks like he's looking over a brick wall. I literally look like that. Like, you can barely even see me. So needless to say, I wasn't really holding it because it was like at my mouth level, my chin level. But it was pretty emotional. Especially when you stop to think, like, pretend that what's happening in Ukraine. And again, coming from somebody from Alaska, it's not that hard for us to try to imagine being invaded. That some country invades the United States, and seeing that an American flag, a huge American flag, being displayed by another country, showing support, because that's exactly what we were doing. Like I said, it was pretty emotional.
Yeah. Do you wanna shall we play that interview that you did with Christopher?
Yeah, we can. Just a little bit of background really quick on Christopher. So I saw this video because, a couple days. So we had been hearing reports all day long that the delegates for Trump and for Putin were here. The media started arriving. One side note really quick, I don't know if anybody knows, Alaska is really heavy into tourism. So summertime, everything is booked. Trying to find a place to stay, to rent a car is really hard, especially in Anchorage. But their delegates and the reporters had been here almost from the moment that it was announced that they were coming. Fun fact, they couldn't find a hotel for the delegates for Putin and Trump. They ended up having to stay in dorm rooms at UAA, which is our University of Alaska Anchorage. Mm-hmm. So that was, I love that for them. I hope they were bunk beds. I'm just saying. So the reporters were here. So there started to be trickling of videos out there on TikTok and YouTube and stuff of the, certain reporters doing interviews. And Chris, there was a TikTok I saw where somebody interviewed him, and he was saying, I always have to, my battery is running low. Why is it not charging?
His YouTube channel is Christopher K, right?
Yes. He did this they interviewed him on the street, and it was actually really kind of funny. And I saw it. And then when I was at the protest yesterday morning outside Government Hill Gate, he was there, and I walked up. I'm like, dude, like, you look familiar. Were you on a TikTok? And he was like, yeah, that was me. And he was like, it was really weird. It's like 18 seconds and it's gone viral. And I'm like, well, it was pretty fucking hilarious. So, and it was such a small little group that we all got to know each other. And like I said, I have a whole bunch of new BFFs now. So then I'm like, hey, so do you mind if I interview you? Because, you know, if I ever do a live with my friend over in the UK, maybe we'll show it, because, you know, I can give my opinion, but it's usually laced with a whole lot of cuss words. So do you mind if I interview? So I did. And this is part of the interview.
Yeah, this is really cool, guys.
What is your name?
Christopher Kelleher.
And how long have you been in Alaska?
Born and raised.
Born and raised, same. All right, so why are you here?
A myriad of reasons. He invited a wanted war criminal to our state and is toying with the idea of giving him access to Alaska's precious minerals.
Right.
And as a kid that grew up during the Cold War, grew up on a gold mine in Nome, Alaska, that doesn't sit with me. It's just ludicrous to me that this is happening. I can't believe our representatives aren't screaming bloody murder about this. I mean, one of our senators is the head of the Armed Services Committee, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Can you pause that for a second?
The lack of moral.
I just want to say, I don't know if you guys heard the girl in the back.
We lost you, Cheryl.
Okay, I have to not hit mute. Just to let you guys know, she said that she was talking to family in Ukraine and they were showing, because there were reporters everywhere. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. But she said that we made the news in Ukraine because there was a reporter there that was live streaming in Ukraine. So when she, this particular protest made the news, so that's what she had yelled.
And this is from yesterday. This is like on the actual morning, right?
Yes, this was yesterday. We got there at 8:30, and actually I missed seeing Trump fly in because he's facing the way that the airfield. I have my back to it. I heard some people making some noise, but yeah, they flew in while we were doing this little interview. So it was before they had actually got there when we started this. And then during this little interview I did with him, both of them ended up flying in while I was doing this. So this was the first protest yesterday morning outside the gate.
Yeah.
The lack of integrity that these people have.
Right.
We want people to know that Alaskans aren't cool with this.
Yeah.
We're not cool with it, and we definitely aren't cool with this president and his policy.
You know, from the outside, Alaska, even I had a reporter from India say, well, Alaska's a very Republican state. It's like, well, honestly, it's really not, but it kind of, you know, so.
It's a red state.
Yeah.
But at the same time, your average Alaskan Republican isn't like a MAGA Republican.
Exactly.
And more are joining us because they're starting to realize that, oh my God, this guy doesn't want to be president. He wants to be a dictator. He wants to be a king. And they're like, that's not what I voted for.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them are realizing that everything that he promised to do, he's done none of it. And all of them are literally just trying to come to terms with the fact that they're responsible for this, and they don't know how to, you know, they're reaching out to us, but I mean, I'd say about 20% of the people that reach out to us actually come out. The rest are still struggling with the fact that this is on them.
Yeah, I saw a meme that said, you don't have to admit that you were wrong, just admit that you were lied to, which that kind of gives them an out, right? Because I think a lot of them, you know, they're afraid of the backlash and
They are.
and you know, regrets, right? So is your feel that especially this term with Trump, that Alaska's feel for him is changing? Do you think the Putin coming here has made a difference?
That's definitely pissed off a lot of Alaskans.
Right.
Alaskans historically not too keen with the Russians. Like I said, the Cold War really really shaped our opinion towards the Soviet Union. And when they broke up, it was more, we were more welcoming to them. Now we've had Putin in there for the last 30 years, who was a KGB agent during the Cold War, and he literally wants it to go back to being the Soviet Union. And Alaskans are not cool with that.
Yeah, and he wants us back.
Yeah, he wants, for 30 years he's wanted Alaska back. A friend of mine was telling me today, kids are taught in Russia that the U.S. stole Alaska from them. And they're like absolutely shocked. I mean, and I remember that when I was in high school, the kids that came over were like absolutely shocked that we bought Alaska from them, because they had been taught that it
was stolen.
We were stolen.
So one more quick question. So this is again from my friend over there in the UK. If you could say one thing to the world, not talking for the U.S. because I'm always trying to explain to them that Alaska's different. I can't speak for the lower 48 because they're different. What would you want the world to know about Alaska and how we feel about it?
Alaska is sorry that our president's a fucking idiot.
Yes.
We're sorry. We're sorry that unfortunately we only have 3 electoral votes, and we're usually, us in Hawaii, are the last people to be counted, so we don't really.
It's usually over by the time.
Conclusion.
So we're sorry.
We're sorry. We're sorry that you guys that the world is having to deal with our failure as a country. I mean, we should have learned our lesson the first time. And it's like Tim Waltz said, Project 2025. I've been telling people, I said, just read it.
Yeah.
Read Project 2025, and then go over the last 7 months of this administration. Literally
checking boxes.
Literally, I made it I have a 19-minute video rant on my page about that.
Okay.
When Lisa said the day Lisa let us down, that's the video. And I talk about that. I talk about how you could literally just check it off. Like some of the EOs that have come out literally are word for word from Project 2025. My big thing is, as fucked up as Trump is, as fucked up as J.D. Vance is, they're not the main problem in our government. The main problem in our government is this weaselly little cocksucker named Stephen Miller.
Yeah, he literally is the son of Satan.
He runs this country.
Yeah.
And
he's horrible human.
He's a little Nazi, which makes me laugh. I'm like, how can you think you're the superior race when you look like Gollum's retarded cousin, So,
okay, well, I'm going to send this in. No, this is awesome.
We're sorry.
We're sorry. Oh, okay. I'm going to also send him your Facebook page and have him, or not your Facebook, your YouTube, and have him look at that video about Lisa too. All right. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was awesome, Cheryl. You definitely have a budding career as a roving journalist if you want it.
I don't think so, because I'm too opinionated.
No, but
I wasn't as neutral as a reporter. I wasn't as neutral as reporters should be. In fact, I met. So I think every Alaskan has been interviewed by a foreign journalist at this point now. Between the one Friday night and the 2 yesterday, I have been interviewed from so many different countries. But yesterday morning, one of the ones was such a sweet girl. She was from India. And she comes up and she asked if we would, because they were always really polite. Do you mind if I ask you some questions? And so she asked some questions. I answered. And then she was done interviewing and she was saying, this is a really big deal. This is all over the news in India. They're really invested in knowing what's going on with this. And she was saying how, as a journalist, she has to be more independent. But her feelings are not independent. And I said, well, you do very well during interviewing, hiding it. I do not. I have plenty of things to say.
Well, there's 2 different types of journalism. There's a one type where you have to be biased regardless of your own opinions. But, there's another type where you're kind of more making an argument, you're making a case. And as long as that's obvious and it's declared, it's fine, right? It's an argument you're making. Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah. Chris was great. I don't know if you planned on showing that other video, but at the second protest yesterday, that was the organized one from Stand Up Alaska, where, you know, people come up, they have different people come up and do and speak. He actually, and he was chosen to read a letter from a Ukrainian family, a local Ukrainian family. It was pretty emotional. The organizer had stated that she tried to get quite a few Ukrainian people if they were willing to come up and speak, and they're too afraid. They're too afraid for a lot of different reasons. There was a lot of reasons. One of the main ones was that they didn't want, you know, if it made the news and all this other good stuff, they didn't want any retaliation to their Ukrainian family back in Ukraine. So somebody did write a letter, and Chris read it, and it was, yeah, again, pretty emotional.
Yeah, I'll play it here. It's just a short clip, guys.
Ongoing destruction, danger, and loss. Here in the United States, families are losing their jobs because their work permits have expired. Parents live in fear, children suffer from anxiety and trauma, and uncertainty is breaking people's spirits. We are not asking for charity or benefits. We are asking for the opportunity to work, to pay taxes, and to serve the country that has sheltered us. We want to be its strength, not its burden. Even if temporary protected status is someday open for those who arrived after August 16th, 2023, it will not solve the main problem, the long and painful delays in processing re-parole applications. Since the hold on approvals was lifted, there have been almost no re-parole confirmations. People remain in fear, not knowing whether they will be sent back to a war zone. Slava Ukraine.
There's your cowbell.
My cowbell.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think of the fact that the official population of Ukraine is down by about a third compared to like 10 years ago. You know, the amount of refugees, casualties, and even, did you hear about Putin stealing Russian children?
I've heard that. I haven't dove into it, but I've heard it.
Apparently, there's about 20,000 Ukrainian children that the Russians took back to Russia after the invasion.
That's I almost have no words for that.
Pretty wild, right?
Yeah, definitely. I personally can also attest to that. At the time that Ukraine was invaded, I was working for a company where the majority of the team that I was on were Russians and Ukrainians. Half of them lived here. They were here on work visas, and they were still in Ukraine and Russia. So when the invasion happened over the next year, the company that I worked for, which was just awesome. And it probably played a part in why I was laid off a little bit later, but that's okay. They spent millions of dollars in contracting buses and transportation to get the employees, the Ukrainian employees and their families to a safer place. Sometimes within Ukraine, they move them, and a lot of time they move them to other countries, you know, because a lot of the Ukrainians were fleeing their country at the time. So that plays into the population going down, because a lot of them fled because they had no choice.
Right. That's right, yeah. And I mean, just imagine what the Ukrainian perspective must be now. One of the weaknesses of democracies, right, is that the political outlook of the country can change so drastically, like on the turn of a die, like after 4 or 8 years, you know. The reason that some dictators can be so successful is because they literally have 20 years to put everything into order that they want, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can they comprehend this change in attitude from the US? How has it gotten this bad, right?
We
What are the
can't
reasons for it?
even comprehend it. I mean, we can't comprehend what the hell is happening.
Do you know how I always talk about the overcorrection problem?
Yes. Yeah.
Which I think is what lies at the heart of why the politics have gotten so wild and why Trump has been able to be so successful. It's essentially down to just how extreme the left became, not just in the US, but in the West at large, in the UK and in Europe. What gets termed the woke left constantly, which is now kind of dead. But it's always a danger when you have one extreme, like, version of politics running riot, and people feel ignored.
Yeah.
That's always when you have the chance of someone more extreme on the other side of the coin to gain support, right? And I think that's exactly what's happened with Trumpism. I mean, 20 years ago, it literally would have been impossible. And you and I were talking the other day about the possibility that the pendulum could swing back again if Trumpism ever dies a death. Is there a chance that we could be in a future era of something even more woke,
Right.
as a response to that, as another overcorrection, right?
Yeah, I have no doubt that's going to happen. I mean, it's I don't want to say it's the laws of physics, but when it comes to politics, it kind of is. I think there is. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I want to think that at least here in the U.S., we need to be very careful, in the next elections to not do that. But I have zero doubt that that's what's going to happen.
There's kind of really only two choices, right?
Right.
Either the Democrats are going to do a version of what New Labour did over here in the UK to be successful, which was to actually grow closer to the Conservative Party, right? So they actually had to move further to the right, closer to the centre, to be successful, because the Labour Party prior to New Labour were pretty extreme to the left, almost verging towards socialism, communism. And they failed continually because of that, right? Because there's always a silent majority, right, that are just more kind of in the middle. And it's less dramatic to have politics that are more in the middle, right? You don't find many banner waving marches of people that are just in the middle, that are not really on one extreme or the other, so they kind of go silent a lot of the time. So the one choice is that one of the two choices is that the Democrats sort their shit out and actually get closer to the right and become closer to what the Republicans used to be, the silent majority are probably gagging for, or they go the other way and go extreme to the left. That's really the only two ways that they can be successful. Because if they stay where they are right now, not really knowing where they are, then you've got Trump for another 4 years, for sure.
Well, I mean, we have Trumpism. We can't have Trump. Well, I say we can't have Trump because he's termed out, but he's always talking about changing it. Yeah, anyways, I get what you're saying.
That's true, Wiccan. Yeah, the UK and Ireland always seem to follow behind the US. I don't know why that is.
Well, don't. Please do not. You and I talk about this. I'm like, if any good could come of our shit show, is we are the example of what not to do. don't do this. Don't do this.
We are
know,
halfway there.
Helen. Yeah, you're halfway there. I know, but I sometimes I just scream in my head, like, somebody has got to stop the fucking madness. And I don't know. I don't know.
Because
Like we were
you're all
talking the other day, like I literally have like this fatigue, and I know it surprised you the other day when we were talking. It has literally only been fucking 7 months. He's only been president for 7 months, and the carnage and the damage that he has caused I don't even want to know what it's going to look like in 3.5 years.
See, when you told me that, I literally did not believe it. It feels like a year at least, doesn't it, since he came in?
It does.
Hey, salty bitch is here.
I gotta go on mute for just a second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
What? She's gonna leave as soon as I get up here.
I know that's
not awkward at all.
That looks planned, but I'm thinking, oh, since you're here, I'm gonna step out just for a second. I'll be right back.
I feel like the unwanted guest. No shit, she's here. I'm gone now. Tell me that's not going to be awkward later, but I can hold it over her head. How are you, Rabbit?
I'm good, thank you. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a long time, right?
It's been a long time since I've heard the dulcet tones of rabies up here. It's been a hot minute.
I think you're the only person I'll allow to call me that. So
It's
somehow you get away with it. I know you. I know it's a nice.
Don't worry, I'll call you Rabbit from now on. I had to get that in, just to get that in there, you know. It's good to hear you. It's good to hear Cheryl. It's good to hear what y'all are talking about. She told me, you know, what you said earlier. It's interesting for me because as an American that's transversing the globe and going back and forth from Europe to the United States and seeing everything from both sides of the pond. So I'm kind of like sandwiched in between you and Cheryl in a way.
Yeah, right. We were actually talking about that because Cheryl said, you know, you might like to join the conversation, and exactly that, right? You've got a unique standpoint from the two of us, right? You're kind of halfway, like you say. And by the way, congratulations. That's so cool to see a happy story, because from personal experience, YouTube and romance don't seem to go that well, but you have.
It does if you keep it secret.
There you go. You found the secret sauce.
Yes. So it's been quite a while since he and I have been together, but we just didn't say anything first because we decided to keep it secret because we didn't want to make it. We didn't want our relationship to become content for some people because that's what happens sometimes when we inject the drama into anything, and it was just it was nice to keep it that way, and it's worked wonderfully, and yeah, we're both happy. Yeah. I'm smiling right now, so thank you for telling me that.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Honestly, there's just a general feeling of like well-being for you guys. You know, it's really, I'm really chuffed for you. It's great.
Oh, thank you, Rabbit.
It's all very natural, you know. That's the great thing about it.
Yes, it is, and it's I don't know. It's interesting when people ask, "How did you meet?" You know, that's always an interesting backstory to it, but you know, generally once you get past that, it's all good. Who knew that you could find your actual soulmate on YouTube? Right. Since he was stalking me all those years, I didn't know it. He was secretly in love with me, Rabies. He was.
Let's just tell the truth. It's not Scottish charm. No one can.
It is. You know? It's just I call him my Scottish Kraken, actually. So yeah, there's that. The salty Scot. But yes, okay, so back to the discussion. I'm so proud of Cheryl. Let me say that first of all. I'm so proud of Cheryl because let me tell you, she has been showing up and going and pounding the streets from Alaska to DC and everywhere in between. And that's when, you know, I've had a lot of conversations with her about that, doing things that I wish I could do, you know, that I would be doing depending if I was there and things like that. So I'm so proud of her. You were just talking about I love you, Cheryl. And, you know, like I said, you're a badass. And I mean that. You know, I've always admired that about you. Always.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I like the interviews. I think you did a very good job. I think you wouldn't, if you weren't biased, you wouldn't have been there on the street. talking
Well,
to
that's
people
true.
and shouting and ringing your bell. So come on, you got to get
Yeah.
so. Let's call it for what it is. You know, that's why I said that's my heifer. Oh my gosh, I can actually say that now. There's my heifer.
Right.
Cowbell. I loved that. But we were talking. This is one thing. When what you were talking about just before I came up. When you're talking about the future and how it changes and how it's changing right now, don't forget that in my home state of Texas,
Yes.
my home state of Texas right now, Trump and his party, and I don't even want to say the Republicans.
Oh, they're trying to gerrymander, right?
Yes, they are. They're trying to redistrict the entire state of Texas, so that way they would have more Republican seats in the House. They're in also, in the Senate, which means that there would be a lot more up for grabs in the midterms that are coming up. It's sad when you have the state Democrats leaving the state rather than, it's a principle, of course, but that's what they're trying to do. And it makes me sick. It makes me sick. It makes me sick.
Why? Let me ask you this, Sam. Why is Trump seemingly unique in politics in being a politician that never seems to pay any consequences for his obvious lies and corruption and alleged crimes? Why does he get away with it with his supporters? Like, there's something different about Trumpism.
I think what it is that we've actually, in the last decade or so, especially over the last 5 years, let's say since his first term, that there has been a general shift in the way we perceive right and wrong at this point. Everything that we used to see as wrong, morally, ethically wrong, people are willing to sidestep it and ignore it and look past it. That's what I think. That's what I think fundamentally has happened. That people, they see the corruption, they see the illegality of it, they see exactly what he is and what he's doing, but they're making excuses for it. They're ignoring it. They're a whole lot of gaslighting. But it's not just in politics. It's you see it, in just every day. I hate to say it, look in communities here on YouTube or other social media platforms, and you look past all the fuckery and the debauchery and the, everybody that's just absolutely, you thought what was morally correct is absolutely wrong, and what's up is down, and down, left and right. It's just up for grabs. It's like people have become morally bankrupt to a certain extent. In my opinion.
See, right there, you've touched on something that is kind of a bit of a theory of mine. Like Cheryl, Helen, and I have spoken about this a lot. I think there's something really bizarre going on in the political world over here as well, to a certain extent. But like the guys in chat were saying, it tends to be a couple of years down the line for us. But there's this weird kind of amalgamation between social media and like the kind of media that we're kind of used to, like, general media on the TV.
In journalism.
In journalism, and even in politics.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is the fact that there's an algorithm present within YouTube that wasn't great. It wasn't created by anyone. Like, there was no kind of evil mastermind came up with this algorithm. It just happens to be the case in the human character that we tend to be drawn towards drama, like something dramatic happening. Like, say, for example, you know how the JFK files came out recently, and there was a lot of people hoping there'd be something incredible within these JFK files, like some, actually Lee Harvey Oswald's innocent.
Yeah.
Well, if you were a YouTube channel and you decided to just do a live and just read through the files as they are and just factually give the information, you would get X amount of views.
Yeah.
But if you went on to YouTube with the same information, and just made up some bizarre claim, it really was the Mexicans that did it, or it really was the Russians.
Yeah.
Everyone knows you would get 10 times as many views.
Sure.
And I think people like Elon Musk, Trump, a whole bunch of others have started to realize that there's something in this to be gained politically as well.
Absolutely, because first Elon had the platform, but that's something altogether different. But there's something you have the president of the United States that was sitting in the Oval Office spouting off Russian fucking propaganda and talking points. When I saw that, I thought, holy shit. I mean, come on. So you have people that are putting whatever they want on social media, and they're under the guise of independent journalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be fact checked. You're not going to have to toe that line, with your credibility, your personal credibility, because and ultimately there's no bias there, right? I mean, you are biased. So, but you can get up there and you can say whatever you want, even though it's dead wrong. And there's no fun in just the regular JFK files. You want to inject the controversy, the conspiracies, the bullshit, because that's what people are going to gravitate to. Because that's what gets people's attention. It's just like you said, the instant gratification of the likes going up and more interaction and more engagement, and it hits that algorithm. So that's why I said, there was just a change that what he's saying is a lie. And I was expecting somebody in that, y'all were talking about that earlier in the Oval Office with Zelensky, right? I was waiting for somebody to stand up and actually say, what the hell is happening? Or for some decorum to enter into the room, especially it being the Oval Office. I never saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't seen any of that since.
Right.
And we won't see it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I just think that that there's a moral bankruptcy that I fear we'll never see again. I don't think that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid that this is the new normal. And I know that I joked with Cheryl about this years ago when she and I first became friends. Remember I said, I feel like Marty McFly in Back to the Future Part 2. Every day I wake up and Biff is in the fucking Oval Office. Yep. Biff is in the White House. Now Biff is just injecting himself in every way, shape, and form around the world. The gold statues in Gaza to, just this ballroom, the gerrymandering in Texas, Putin coming to freaking Alaska. He's a war criminal, I thought when he deployed the National Guard in D.C. right before that, I thought, holy shit. I had images of Red Dawn coming into my head when the Russians were fucking coming down in a parachute. So, and all of these are absolutely outlandish things that I'm saying, but it's a real possibility.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Everyone knows that Trump doesn't know about history. He doesn't have an ideology politically.
No.
Right?
No, he doesn't.
He has motivations, but they're entirely selfish. And they're entirely what were present in his past as someone that wanted to make a lot of money and to make deals.
It makes me sick to think the amount of money he's made. Just during his time.
Not just him, but his entire family. Yeah. I mean, this has all just been a business transaction for him. And to feed his narcissistic ego. But it has nothing to do with wanting to make America great. All of that's just bullshit. He's there to make money. He's there to make money for his family. And he's there to feel like he's, a ruler. He's a king. He's a he doesn't like the word dictator. And I get it, but call it what it is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I see that. I was going to say something, and I kind of.
Sorry.
I'm not sure which train of thought I actually want to inject here. Honestly,
you were talking about how much money it makes you sick. How much money?
Well, he's transactional. There's no telling what promises he made privately to people just to get him back into office. I mean, there's no telling. But the corruption, it's so blatant, and that's what I was saying. Will we ever see normalcy again? In the United States, when we have a national emergency, something awful happens, right? Whether it be a hurricane, an earthquake, a national tragedy, a freaking another school shooting, anything like that. You see the president come up and they bring people together. They're the face of the nation. It's not about party politics. what was it that I was saying to you, Cheryl? Country over party. That's what we were founded on, country over party. When are we going to start seeing that again? Country over party. And people just seeing democracy die before our eyes. And I think about the country that Maddie is going to inherit, or she's going, inheriting now. She's feeling effects already since this man has been in office.
Yeah.
And it's horrendous. And I shudder to think what it's going to be like.
Because what Trump and Trumpism has done is he's kind of delivered a playbook on how you can be successful. And there's a whole bunch of people and a whole lobby coming underneath him, like the J.D. Vances, etc., that are going to continue this new way of politics, and whatever ideology that they might have that Trump doesn't have is going to come to the fore. Because it seems that there's a genuine movement to return the US to America first, where the problems in Europe or in the Middle East or wherever are just not worth us supporting anymore. They're not worth us sending our soldiers over to die for anymore. Because the upcoming power in the world is China. So if you look at these things coldly as if it's just a chessboard where things like values and history and culture don't matter, it actually makes strategical sense to do that, to concentrate on China, because that's where the big threat is coming. But of course, the world isn't a chessboard. Like, there's important other issues like history and culture and the closeness between the US, the UK, and Europe. Like, they actually mean something real,
Yes.
That's what scares me the most, because I think there's a huge danger that the West could be on the brink of dying here.
I know.
The idea of the West, what the West always stood for, right? Because, like, the argument that got a lot of traction is it became supported through a guy called John Mearsheimer, who's a political writer, really smart guy, but he's one of these guys that believes that the world is only a chessboard. He doesn't contemplate all these other issues that I was talking about, right? And he has made the argument that Putin is within his rights to see Ukraine coming closer to the West is an existential threat, or at least a threat militarily, because NATO has been encroaching, and more countries have decided to join NATO. And he argues this basically on Russia's behalf, and a lot of people have bought into this. And I hear it referenced all the time by the America First kind of people. But the point is, Russia or the Soviet Union lost the fucking Cold War. And there's a consequence to losing the Cold War, right? The West won the argument over the Soviet Union and communism. So it's just tough shit, from my point of view, that Putin thinks that NATO is a threat. It doesn't change the fact that the Ukrainians have the sovereignty and the democratic right to choose to be a part of the West. And he just has to deal with it. And Russia just has to deal with it. That's just the consequences of history. But people have been so blinded by this argument. That's my rant over.
Oh, okay. I appreciate your rant. I do. And I see where you're coming from, and I can see the correlation. But I'm also looking, into the future. Can we expect that I don't know. I think how long Putin's been in quote unquote office, right?
25 years.
Yeah. And how the changes that have been made in that time, right?
Yeah.
And when did he when did he get to the point where he thought that NATO was a threat? That his power was such that it was becoming a real threat to other people. When did he realize that? Or he probably hasn't even, well, of course he's realized it, but I'm afraid I don't want to see an Oval Office, with someone like, Trump and then Vance and, in there for the next 25 years. I mean, right now they're trying to.
Terrifying. That's terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying. What terrifies me is the fact that, I actually thought, well, yeah, they're going to get slaughtered in the midterms. But I thought, well, it's incredibly naive of me to think that the midterms will even happen at this point, right?
Yeah.
And what are they going to do to ensure that that doesn't happen, or if it does happen, that it would be legitimate? And that's where you see what's happening in Texas. So it's if that happens, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that this happens, right? You will see Trump in his ilk and his sycophants for the next 2 decades, 3 decades, just like Putin in Russia. And I don't know, it makes me sick to my stomach. I know that's.
Do you agree as well that you can, in one sense, you can kind of understand some people supporting Trump or Trumpism because the left just went over into fairy tale land, and the whole woke movement was so, from my point of view, just insane, like how bad it got, that if you don't scratch the surface too much and see all the problems that are obviously there with Trump and Trumpism, you can kind of be forgiven in one sense for thinking, well, this is just the better choice, right?
I think there are a lot of people, especially young people, and people that are a lot younger than all three of us, that want to be able to say all the bad words and say all the ugly things to people and be absolute dicks and assholes. And that's what I'm seeing, actually, more than anything. It wasn't anything about the left. It was about the ugliness coming out of people, and people like Trump gave them, a stamp on their ticket to do so. That's the way I see it. That's I don't see it as the woke movement being too woke. I don't really look at it that way. That's just the way I see things. But it just seems that, to me, that the ugliness came out of people, and they felt like it was okay to be ugly. And of course, when you have a TikTok channel or a YouTube channel, or you have a Facebook page, and that kind of that what you're putting out is reactionary, right? And it's getting more attention, and it's getting you more views and more clicks and all of that, and just feeds into that the ugliness of people, and they fed into that, and just and then you wake up and then you pull up your YouTube or you pull up your TikTok or whatever, and it's nothing but that ugliness, and you're seeing it all the time. And then you do have that injection of artificiality into it when like with Twitter, when he's fucking with the algorithms, and you're seeing the stuff on Twitter that they want you to see. Yeah. And I think that was a huge boost as well. And it gave people an idea of, oh, well, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm picking up what they're throwing down, even just a little tiny bit. Just from my perspective, I'm seeing a lot more ugliness when I'm here in the UK now than I did a year ago. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, Helen and I speak about this a lot with Cheryl.
I bet you do. Yeah.
Because we have some major issues over here, which are similar in one sense to what's going on over in the US, but also a little bit uniquely different when it comes to issues like immigration. They're slightly separate problems to what's happening in the US. And it's kind of like the overcorrection thing again, where there's an administration in the US that is now literally divorcing children born in the US from their parents on behalf of ICE. It's becoming insane, right?
It's insane, especially when you look at what the Statue of Liberty, what does it say? Give us, you're tired and you're poor and you're hungry and you're hungry masses.
Yep.
We are a nation built of immigrants.
We were called the melting pot. We were the melting pot.
So regardless of people's reasons of going to the United States, Trumpism has fed into the idea that those that came here shouldn't be here. And again, America first. But what the whole idea that we have is birthright citizenship. My daughter was born. I was born there. My daughter was born there. are they just going to wake up tomorrow and decide, no,
Hmm.
you can't be here because of whatever reason? I mean, theoretically, that's what they're doing to people that are there
Mhm.
legally and were there the right way.
Mhm.
You
They-
are going to have
they-
people that are there illegally, of course, just like they enter other countries illegally. But there's no separation between legality and illegality at this point. The overreach is astounding to me.
Well, let's just call it what it is. They're using the fear again. Read the playbook of what Hitler did. The fear mongering. They're using fear. The illegal immigrants. The illegal. It's not about illegal immigrants. Nobody wants illegal immigrants in their country. Nobody does, right? But they're trying to redraw the lines, just like they're fucking doing in Texas. They're trying to change what is an illegal immigrant, and the one that just, well, it all does, but the one that blows my mind, I've literally watched threads of people trying to make it normal to say that American Native Americans, and again this affects Alaska Natives a big time, again baffles me that we're a red state at this point, but that Native Americans, they're immigrants, and their justification, get the way that they do mental gymnastics to come up with their reasoning just boggles me. But because it wasn't a country, it wasn't a defined country, that the white people who came over on the Mayflower and the other two, Nina and Pinta or whatever the hell they were, they're the ones that set up a civilization, that these people were not civilized. And so it is our country, not theirs. They're the immigrants. That's the mental gymnastics that they're trying to come up with to take away citizenship from Native Americans, Alaska Natives, all of it. And they say this, they wholeheartedly believe, and again, that all just comes from hatred, racism, all of it. And
Make
like you were
America
saying,
great again, right?
right?
Yes, exactly. Make white America great again.
Make America white again is what it is.
And at the same time, they're decrying about all these illegals getting benefits. They're, taking money out of our, they're taking our jobs, or they're, they're not paying taxes. They're paying taxes. They're doing this. They're doing that. And then they bring in white South Africans, and give them little fucking American flags and shit. I could not believe that when that happened. But it's just another day in Trump America, right? Or in the world that we live in now. Upside down, down is up and up is down. And Biff is in the White House.
It not, I mean, we can talk all day about the hypocrisy and the things like that, but it literally, it makes no sense. Going back to what you were saying about, the hatred and how it's just so common now, it literally seemed to happen, in my opinion, overnight. I'm Gen X. I was raised in the 80s. And I've talked to Ian about this, saying quote unquote, not politically correct terms was kind of normal growing up. You heard the things, you heard the sexism, you heard the racism, and you're just like, whatever, you're just being stupid. But you didn't stand up to it. It just was a thing. I mean, you didn't agree with it, but yeah, whatever. And then you move along. But then something shifted and it became not okay to say certain things, and people were kind of being called out on it a little bit. We didn't have social media, so it wasn't the same. But then it took a long time to where it got to, you can't say that shit in, say it privately, but don't say it publicly. And then social media came up, the internet came along, and then it was all over the internet. And then people started backlashing on the internet going, you can't say that shit. And then it kind of seemed like it got tamped down, right? Like you can say whatever you want, but there are consequences for what you say. So that's cool, right? And then it just feels like within a matter of 10 minutes, all of a sudden, all those things that I heard growing up that have become so offensive to me now because it's not okay. It's perfectly fine now. It's just people just say it. And, it started out being, a few years ago, people are like, oh shit, did he just say the quiet part out loud? We don't even say that anymore. We're just like, yeah, another piece of shit said another piece of shit thing. Like and that started again, and it's hard to pinpoint, but when Trump, the first time when he was in office, and that leaked audio came out where he's talking about women and how it's okay to just grab them by the pussy because, you know, when you're rich, you can do that. When you're a celebrity, you can do that.
Yeah.
I noticed almost instantly the negative comments towards women just started blowing up. All of a sudden, it was perfectly fine because our president talks like that, so I can talk like that. And
Do you not
it's
think
only
there's?
got worse.
Do you not think there's another aspect of that played a part in the equation, though, that you're describing, which is the fact that the left played a part in that by what I was describing earlier is when wokeism just got insane, where it was almost being taught to society that you're nothing unless you're some kind of minority, right? And there was this sort of desire for people to want to feel special, right? You're only special if you have some aspect of a minority to you, to your character, right? Whatever it is. And then you add on top of that, when there was even an attempt to change the definitions of genders, right? That gender isn't even a scientific biological fact. It's just a social construct. It's a choice. You can decide tomorrow if you want to be, 50% more female or more male. That's entirely your right to do that. And then you think about the whole movement to make a failure to use someone's preferred pronoun a crime. Like I hate crime. That's all kind of gone away now, right? But do you not think the reaction to that played a part in giving the platform to become something that you're describing?
Well, I have to say this as an American, I didn't see it like that when, in the States. There was much more of that woke, at the woke, what you're talking about over here in the UK. I can see it still in a way. So, but in the United States, it wasn't as prevalent as I think of what you're thinking it may have been or might have been.
Well, there you go. Like
we had some conversations about that. I remember doing some live streams when I was talking to like with stand up and Cheryl was up on panel when we were talking about that and just about the different movements that she was participating in over here. And I remember those conversations that we have. So I don't see it as so much as an overcorrection, actually. I don't, not myself. I think that there were lines that there were some people though that I think did become rabid, if you will, with that it's not defined, like you said, in scientific basis, but just as a personal feeling almost, right? Today I feel like more of a woman, or tomorrow I might feel like more of a man, that kind of thing. But it wasn't that there was if you went looking for
that was definitely the impression, right? That was definitely the impression from the outside. But you're obviously there, so you have the better evidence than I do, right?
What are you asking me a question, or are you just stating something? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying that was the impression from the outside.
Oh yeah,
for me anyway. But you were there, so you're the one that can speak,
Oh, at the time in the US.
Right.
It wasn't, if you were looking, if you were like ultra woke, sure, you were going to find communities that were ultra woke as well. Just like if you're an ultra fucking racist bastard, you're going to find ultra racist bastards out there. But I didn't feel like I woke up and I was having anything force fed down my throat, anybody's personal beliefs or anything like that being, force fed and just pushed on to me, coming from the far left in any way. But I think that there was just a period of time that, especially with the whole idea of gender identity, it was pretty much worldwide, and I think that it was based in that the trans youth movement, really
in the West,
yeah. So it just in looking at it from my perspective, and of course this is going back several years now, but and having conversations with people, and a lot of them that were here in the UK at the time. A lot of the different protests that were taking place for trans youth and gender identity and things like that. But you didn't see that. There weren't protests like that, that I can remember off the top of my head, in the United States. You had a couple of people. I remember it was in Texas. I remember this because it was in Texas, and it was a woman. She was a doctor, and she was insistent, I think, that her son go through gender affirming therapeutic care. And I think the boy was like 5 or 6. And his father was fighting her in court because he, was totally opposed to it. I remember that case, but that's
it was certainly, it was all across social media. It was on the screens. It was definitely prevalent, but perhaps not on the ground by the sounds of it from what you're saying,
No.
I suppose it makes sense. There's going to be a difference between,
but again, with social media, just in the last 5 years, I mean, our consumption of social media in the last 5 years has just quadrupled. I mean, it's just astronomical how much we use social media now as opposed to 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or even a time when we didn't have it. Like Cheryl was saying, no social media growing up. I mean, our one-on-one interpersonal relationships with people were literally that, going to your friend's house or going to the library, hanging out after school, or going to movies or things like that. If you wanted to talk, you got on the phone or you just hung out, outside the house. So, that there's a huge disconnect. And when you have that disconnect, we're seeing it with all, it's totally acceptable to be a misogynist and to be a racist and just to be a just diabolical prick and bitch in some cases. So, but you're seeing the ugliness. And I think that what I'm seeing now, when you talk about overcorrection, I think that we're seeing it. But going back to when you mentioned, with Trump, he's not doing this, on his own. Y'all mentioned Stephen Miller earlier. There is an army of people behind him. There were people that were put into place to put him back into office, and they were going to get what they got. And it wasn't for our benefit. It certainly wasn't for the American citizen, everyday normal, just everyday, red-blooded American citizen. And to all the citizens in the world at large, just like you said in your title, is this the end of the West as we know it? It potentially is. I hate to say that. That's the awful part to say out loud, isn't it? That's potentially we're seeing it happen.
I think it's definitely that severe. I think there's a potential 50 years from now, historians will look back on what just happened there the other day and describe this as a catastrophe. It's kind of funny. Putin described the falling of the Berlin Wall and the dissolution of the Soviet Union as the catastrophe of the century, right? That's from his point of view, obviously. And that tells you something about the problem with Ukraine, is that there's no doubt that NATO never genuinely was threatening Russia militarily. But if you're someone that believes in the old days, and if you're someone that believes that we need to return to the empire of Russia and we need to have all these buffer states back again, then you might see it as a threat, NATO. But that's from his unique point of view, and anyone that thinks like him, anyone else that's an imperialist. But like I said earlier, that's just tough shit because you lost the Cold War.
Yeah.
But what is crazy is that you have people in high places, in elite positions in the West, making the argument for him right now.
Yeah, and that's what we want to try to stop. I don't know if we can. All I know is that I know it sounds like a sound bite, but it kind of hit home for me when I was in DC, not this last time, but the time before that, when I went to the Holocaust Museum. And I think I told you guys, they have a lot of stuff written on, in these big panels that are on the walls. And it literally goes like, on this date, Hitler did this, on this day. And you can literally see this is the same shit that Trump is doing. And then, there's a lot of things out there on social media. It's like, one of the things is when you sit back and you look at the Holocaust and you think, why didn't the Germans stand up? this is your time. And so it kind of feels like that. You know, and Sam being from Texas, especially Texas, like, oh my goodness, Texas is always in the middle of everything. But right now, kudos to their state senators that, you know, are doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
The only thing that we can do, you know, because Rabbit, you and I have talked about this, like, we don't have a voice. We are not on the Senate floor. We're not the ones in power that can put forward these changes. The only thing we can do is be really, really careful who the hell we elect for our state representatives. But other than that, we don't have that voice. So what we can do is get out there and show our representatives and things like that where we stand with this. But at the end of the day, again, this sounds so minor, but it's a big deal to me. It's regardless, you know, whether we stop this, which I believe we will at some point, or it continues and we end up with, because we're pretty fucking close to, you know, Nazi Germany, is you look in your, you know, your descendants, your children, your grandchildren, and you say, well, I don't know, I didn't like it, and I posted about it on Facebook, and I did this. But for me, it needs to be more than that. Getting out there, and again, Alaska, a very small state, so you know, you know that saying 6 degrees of separation. For in Alaska, it's like 3 at the most, you know. And my sister, for an example, my older sister, she has been afraid. She's been afraid all this time to go to protests because she lives out in the valley, which is not just red. It's very Trumpish. She's been afraid. Yesterday, I can announce, she broke her protest cherry and came to her very first protest. She's like, it's now or never, right? I got to do something. You know, so I know people don't agree with kids going to protests, and I respect that, especially if you live in bigger areas like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. Alaska, again, Alaska is, you're not in danger. Cole goes to a lot of protests with me and McKenna. And one of the things, you know, we talk about is because the shit that's happening now, if it doesn't get stopped, he's the one that's going to be affected. I mean, I'm going to die eventually, right? I mean, my suffering is only going to be for 20 years or something. You know, the shit that he's doing affects this little boy. And he's going to be a part of this. So we take him to, he loves to go to the protests. I mean, just a side note here. When he gets around people, he gets painfully shy. One of his favorite things to do, though, and I did not, this was his mother. I did not. She told him one time when he was like, so what are protests? She's like, it's where you go and try to fight the government when they're doing bad things, right? So that stuck in his head. So his favorite thing for us to do is to drive around where the protest is, where you just go around the block and you honk the horn. Roll the window down. He sticks his fist out. He screams, fight Donald Trump, fight the government. That's his favorite part about protests. And I you know,
expect anything less.
Huh?
I said I wouldn't expect anything less from your grandson.
yeah, he loves it. Yeah, we did have to coach him a little bit the other day because I was like, guess what? Guess who's coming to Alaska? And he's like, who? And I said, Donald Trump. And he's like, oh, we hate Donald Trump. I said, yes, we do. He goes, I want to kill him. Nope, don't say that. Nope, we can't say that. He's like, can I punch him in the face? I said, yeah, you can say that, but no, that other word, no. So anyways, yeah. So that's kind of the thing. I don't want to, you know, in 20 years, if something horrible has happened, going, yeah, I kind of did what Germany did, because that, oh, you didn't show your intro thing, did you? Or did you? Was I here? The frog?
Oh no, sure. That's I'm putting together an argument as a kind of video essay type thing.
Oh, okay.
And what I showed you is just the introduction to that, so I've not.
Oh, okay.
Yet.
Yeah. So I've always subscribed to this story that I heard a long time ago, and I've clearly shortened it all down. And I was telling Rabbit about it the other day. I said it's like the frog in the boiling water, where you have a frog in this water. You introduce hot water, he's going to jump out. You slowly turn up the temperature of the water, and before it gets up to the boiling point. By then, it's too late. The frog can't jump out because he just sat there as the temperature slowly rose.
Right.
So it is killing the frog. So
Yeah.
so that's kind of what what Hitler did, what Trump's trying to do. But we have the hindsight, or not the hindsight, we have the insight of knowing what he's doing and what we can start to do to prevent it, which is all of these things. Again, because and it's always the other side. It's always the MAGA going, oh, a bunch of people standing outside. So what did you accomplish? Well, we accomplished a hell of a lot more than the people who just sit in their houses and do nothing. Like I said, one of the main things for me is showing your representatives where you stand. Maybe they should act accordingly, or cozying up to Trump. And we won't even get into that with my fucking representatives and senators and shit. Cozying up to Trump, that may save you right now in this term, but we see you. And we're the ones that have the control over whether you get another term, right? So here, you're seeing all these people showing up and doing all these things. Maybe you should adjust. Maybe you don't answer to Donald Trump, you answer to the people. That's kind of the
scary to me. What's scary to me, Cheryl, in that thought is that there's a very real possibility that's not the case.
Right.
That,
well,
that
you're right.
how we vote, that our votes won't count. That's what scares the fuck out of me.
Well, you're right. And that's why we need, oh my God, like Gavin Newsom, we need right now the governors of the blue states and the federal judges. They're the ones that have saved us. We would be 10 times worse right now if it weren't for them. And it takes even state representatives like what the Democrats in Texas did. They stood up. They stood up. It's going to take more of that, not just us protesting. I really do believe, maybe it's just wanting to put it out into the universe. I do believe that more and more are waking up, and the chances of them being able to take away the vote or to rigging the vote, stealing the vote is lessening, because there's a spotlight on it now. Whether people want it or not, there's a spotlight on it now. It's going to be scrutinized a lot more than before, where it was like, now you're just being paranoid. So I'm holding out hope that our elections will still be valid and that we still will have them. But again, like you said, if I woke up tomorrow and found out that it all went away, I don't think it would surprise me.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's good to just be presented with an obvious contrast of what we currently have to what we were used to in the past. And there's a clip here from Barack Obama speaking recently just on some of the problems of Trumpism. Because it's known that Trump, has basically tried to clamp down on the media over there, preventing passes for different media groups like Associated Press from even attending press conferences.
Getting rid of, PBS and censoring. I mean, all of the major networks in the United States are so heavily, they're censoring themselves so heavily that it's become it's blatantly obvious at this point, because financially, they're being strong-armed by Trump and his goonies, and it's that simple. So, you want to talk about propaganda, and pretty soon, I'm afraid that you can turn on one of the major networks, forget CNN or Fox at this point, just major networks, and it's going to be it's becoming obvious that they've bent the knee, so to speak. To me, it is, and you go back to Hitler. Let me ask you this. I mean, I just had this massive rationalization. If social media was around at that time, do you really think that it would have happened? I think there are too many voices. There are too many eyes. We have instant communication with each other around the world at this point.
That's the one saving grace, I think. The world has contracted through social media so that communication means are so much easier than they were in the past.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because one of the things that worries me the most over here in the UK is that I think it's potentially possible. I don't know if this will happen, but it's potentially possible if things go a certain way, a real, true right-wing, almost fascistic populism could gain support in the
I see
UK.
that. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, Ian. I
In
do.
in the
I'm seeing it more now. This is
mhm.
just my perspective as an American,
Wow.
transversing world. Let's just say I'm seeing it more now
Yeah.
than I did a year ago. I'm seeing it more now than I did 6 months ago.
That just underlines the point. If you can sense some of this, right,
Mhm.
as an American coming over,
Mhm.
and the ironic thing is that it's kind of similar to the argument I was making earlier in terms
About
of
immigration.
the overcorrection argument, right?
Yeah.
The when you have a situation where there's huge problems with the economy for one,
Mhm.
and a lot of apathy whereby the working classes feel completely ignored by the elites and the
Yes.
politicians.
Mhm.
And then you add on to that what is, I think anyone, even on the left, would admit is been an immigration problem over here, which is uniquely different from what the problem is in the United States, because the United
Yeah,
States
I agree.
is built on immigration, and
Exactly.
people that desire to immigrate to the United States, they want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of the American dream. They're buying into an idea when they do that, right? But
Yes.
it's different in Europe and in the UK because, unfortunately, there's a high ratio of immigrants that are choosing to come to the UK that have zero desire to integrate with the society and with the culture.
And to be
The
of benefit to it, right?
What's that?
And to be of benefit to that culture and society.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
Because immigration is a good thing, like just as a de facto thing in and of itself. Every country needs a certain amount of immigration, but there just has to be a sensible immigration policy, right? If you have a problem like I'm describing, where there's a desire from a certain ratio of immigrants to maintain their own culture and to want to stick together in their own communities, right? Like the problems that can come from that are just obvious. You don't even have to talk about extreme religious beliefs and terrorism and things, right? There's just even a problem with integration there. And when like the authorities and the politicians start lying to their own populace that these issues are not occurring, and there's been unfortunately some scandals with certain communities committing some sex crimes and basically sex trafficking.
Yes.
Like when that is just attempted to be ignored and brushed under the carpet, and people realize that this is happening, then it's like Cheryl's frog. You know, it's sitting there, the water's simmering. Eventually, it's going to boil up, and the dam's going to burst, and you're going to get. I think we had a taste of it with the riots last year, when people felt like the police were not telling the truth about that incident that happened with the Southport girls. Turns out they were lying to an extent, right? But what I believe that's telling you, if those people continue to feel like they're being ignored, or there's not enough people talking about this exact issue, then right-wing fascistic movements are going to gain popularity as the alternative, and that will be the overcorrection.
Yes, I agree with you on that. And from my perspective, I remember thinking to myself, and I could see it. And I actually, we had conversations about this last year when, as you mentioned, with the riots and things, that you have a government that is telling the populace that if you say anything, you're racist. This is just from my perspective, right? If you say anything and you vocalize your concerns or the issue that you're having, then you're being a racist. And and I can say that just like if you said anything that was pro-Palestine, or you're anti-Semitic. So I see those two things actually almost. I see the correlation from my perspective. Again,
Mhm.
with press coverage here and then press coverage over there. I see the correlation that, but things have changed. I think things are changing, but I agree with what you're saying, that it's gotten to a point now where the right wing fascists, as you're calling them, or as you put it,
Mhm.
are saying the things that people are thinking.
Yeah.
And it's not, but before it gets so far to that side, there's got to be some middle ground here. But it's been ignored from my perspective by your government for so long
Yeah.
that it's turning ugly. And I'm seeing a lot of ugly things. I know up here, was it last week or within the last couple of weeks, wasn't it? When there was it's the Scottish equivalent of the Boy Scouts here.
Oh,
They were having their campground, and the locals thought they were a bunch of migrants, and were basically, going and attacking these kids, going
yeah.
after these kids, thinking that they were migrants, and it was a migrant camp. And I thought, holy shit.
Yeah.
Where's the discernment that you didn't realize that it was the Scottish equivalent of the Boy Scouts?
Right.
You open up your eyes. There's a lack of discernment that I'm just not seeing. I'm just not seeing it from people.
Yeah. See, it's the fact that the mob doesn't look deeper into the situations, right? A mob mentality just doesn't take prisoners, and people are going to start believing the most extreme arguments possible. And like you were describing earlier, but over in the US, there's always genuine racists out there that are going to glom on to any movement, right? Think, at last, this is our chance. Just
Yeah.
like with the UK riots,
Yeah.
it's always the nutcases that are the loudest. But it was wrong to describe that whole problem as just being far right thuggery, which is what Keir Starmer did.
I thought,
dangerous.
that pissed me off. That pissed me off. Honestly, it did, because I thought there are people that they're not far right thugs. These are people just like you. Well, not just like him, but it came down to, it's just a bunch of far right thugs and racists. These are concerned citizens. And I think, of course, when you had the people that were live streaming it, and there's always going to be some in the group or in the crowd that are going to,
Exactly.
start shit. I mean, it's just going to happen. But the overall, temperature of it was, he again, a lack of discernment, and he just can't read the room. And it's disappointing. It was disappointing for me to see that.
It comes from some kind of fear. I don't know where it comes from. Just this fear to tell the actual truth, or to just describe what's really happening. It's almost like a kind of patronizing the general public that you can't handle this information. You don't have our ethics to be able to deal with it. And I think the public can kind of sense, that elitism. We can't handle the truth here because we'll just go crazy.
I don't know. I just think that from my perspective, and I remember talking to John about this a long time ago, when you have, I mean, this is a small country, right? And immigration is a good thing, just like you said, but it's also a bad thing when it's used for hate, and it's used, to perpetuate hate. But it's like, how can your government sustain itself when you have that, just like you said, you touched on, that class of elitism that seems to be prevalent.
Yeah.
Regardless of, I don't know,
and especially when you add into the mix the fact that it wasn't that long ago that the British Empire ruled the waves, right? So there's this kind of subconscious memory of Great Britannia that was the United States of its day, that had such power, and where our ancestors died on the beaches in Dunkirk and died in the jungles in Malaya to save liberalism, and to save the West. In 2 wars, our ancestors won those wars, and yet we lost everything in terms of geopolitically. Britain has lost its entire empire as a result of fighting those wars. So when you add that into the mix as well, it's really easy for me to see a certain path where a right-wing fascistic element could get a lot of support, and that's
I do.
that's
That's
the
a scary.
scariest
That's
overcorrection
scary.
possible.
It's a scary thought to me, but I can see that. And there are voices that are so far right, and that are just. But then there are people that are listening to something that one of them might have said, toned down a couple of years ago, when they've latched onto that idea. And I think it's a general idea of um, culture and British culture and national identity. I think that's what people are, talking more about and not seeing it anymore. And then it comes down to, again, other feeling that I don't want to say the white Christian or the white identity, but I don't want anybody. I know I don't sound racist, but I just don't know how to actually vocalize this and verbalize this without sounding like it.
Well,
But
like
the national,
Iceland
just going to
culture?
national. Well, no, just national identity and white British, national identity. That you speak about, those that were fighting in World War I and World War II, right? If a war was fought today, who would be fighting it? The identity, the national identity here has changed.
Yeah, there's a huge part of the community that would not be fighting for Britain in that circumstance, right? I think is what you're alluding to.
I don't think they would. I think, and then that basis, there's some people that are afraid that there's a lot of Muslims here, and maybe they're planning something. I'm hearing people say that out loud.
And see, that right there is the unique difference between the situation here in the United States. I don't get the impression that there's elements of immigrants coming to the United States that would not want to fight on behalf of the United States, right?
Yeah.
So, Cheryl, we have our own problems here too.
Well, I mean, it makes us not feel so alone, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, again, I've told you before, it's not that I don't sympathize with other places around the world, and I try to, keep a good eye on it, but it's kind of hard to focus on other catastrophes when your own fucking house is on fire.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I said I'm like in between. I'm like a sandwich. I'm the middle of y'all's sandwich here,
Right.
That's how I feel.
Right.
But no, it's just it's unbelievable to me. I just know this, that I have heard more people. Well, no. After Trump was first elected, and whatever his campaign promises were, whatever it was, I would see comments and I would hear people saying, "Oh, we want somebody like Trump over here, and he would fix all of our problems, and he would do this." I can, what?
Yeah.
And I would shout at them, "No, you fucking don't." But I'll tell you what, I'm not hearing anybody. I'm not seeing those comments anymore from the people over here. I remember I was at a cafe, a local cafe, and when all that shit with Elon was popping off, and the Epstein files, and all of that, and the temperature of the crowd was like, "Oh my God, thank God we don't have anything like that over here," or people saying, "I thought we might be fucked up, but we're not that fucked up." That's general,
Right.
the general opinion. So that's what I'm feeling here. That's what I'm getting from the people here now, as opposed to those few comments like, "Oh, we need somebody like Trump." No. Trust me.
Well,
So,
my response was, "We would love to give him to you. Let's make that happen."
Yeah.
Rabbit, how would that go over? How do you think that would go over here?
Oh my God. Yeah. From my point of view, I think there's just too many people that have been suckered by the act of Trump and his ilk.
But there's also enough people that latch on to the hate, and they have a voice, and and That's what scares me. That there's more people that want to latch onto that idea. If it's okay to say the awful things out loud, you know.
Well,
That's my fear as well for here.
those people over here are going to get potentially the shock of their life if things go a certain way in the United States and the America First movement succeeds, and Europe and the UK is left being told you have to defend yourself now. And do you know what the irony is that being revealed, which was kind of revealed in front of Zelensky at the Oval Office, right, with JD Vance especially.
Oh God.
It's actually doing us a favor in a sense, because it is true that one of the big problems of the UK and Europe is that we have genuinely relied too much on the United States for our defense and for our economy and such things, right?
Yeah.
It's about time that Europe was able to get its act together and become a geopolitical force, because Europe combined has the same economic resources and it has the same defense resources as the United States. And it looks to me like the world probably needs a strong Europe, right?
Yes.
But
I agree.
But some people that are supporting Trump right now over here, as I said earlier, are going to get the shock of their life when they realize what Trump really might want for us over here. I don't think they'll be so keen to be supporting him much longer after that.
I always believed that it was my fundamental belief, just me, that the United States shouldn't be the watchdog of the entire world, right?
Yeah.
That we shouldn't be sending humanitarian. I'm just using this as an example. You know, we're sending aid to the Palestinians into Gaza at the same time giving the Israelis the missiles to fucking kill them with, and in the guns and the bullets to kill them with. You know.
Yeah.
To me, that was just fundamentally wrong, ethically, morally, and fiscally. You know, it just didn't make any sense. I believe that the United States, the size of it, the GDP, the economy, all of it, that we had enough resources to help those that didn't have enough resources of their own.
Yeah.
And that's why I was so upset with you said when it was effectively shut down. You know.
Oh
at the
my
beginning
God.
Of yeah.
That shocked. Like, see, looking into that actually shocked me. Looking at the actual numbers.
Yes, I know. But what you were saying, I think that as a whole, like you said, geopolitically, there should be I think that y'all are able to sustain yourselves a lot more than people actually realize.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's just my thought on it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if y'all can hear that in the background. Stop.
It's a pretty depressing situation, isn't it? When you think about it, when you stand back a bit and just think about the situation, it's not the most cheery of topics.
No, it's not the most cheery, but you know what? It gives me hope, you know, for people like Cheryl, all the people holding that huge flag. And that gave a lot of people hope around the world. And that's happening daily. I mean, as long as people have a voice and they use it, you know.
Yeah.
This too shall pass. I hopefully in the midterms. You know, Texas is trying to hold the line, and hopefully Newsom and the others will fight fire with fire. I think it's time to get dirty. I don't think that, you know, it's not politics as usual. I think that's my issue with the Democratic Party, and it has been for quite some time. You know, you can't. It's gotten ugly, so you need to fight ugly. Okay, it's Biff. We've got to, you know, do what we can. So
I love that metaphor. Actually, that works for me.
It's true. And I told this in the first Trump presidency. Remember that, Cheryl? I was like, every day I wake up and it's like fucking Biff is president, and I feel like Marty McFly in Back to the Future Part 2. She's like, what are you talking about? I said, think about it. We woke up and Biff is president of the United fucking States. And when he lost that re-election, she and I cried with each other. We were so happy. We were so happy. And Kamala was the first female VP. And yes, we're going to go back to normal. And then January 6th happened and cried together again. You know, that was heartbreaking and disgusting thing. All this just, it seems like all these years later, you know, that this is where we're at now as a country and where we're at in the world. It's sad, but people like Cheryl will keep doing what they're doing, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you know, just I am too. Yeah, it to me it was an easy decision. I've been to one, and it wasn't even a protest. The first Gulf War back in '91. It was a support the Gulf War. My mom wanted to go to it. They had it down at the Park Strip, the same place that they did that flag. And it was February. I was 8.5 months pregnant, and my mom wanted to go, so I went with her. That's the first time I'd ever gone to anything like that. And I haven't really gone to anything since then. It was when I was in DC, and I went to the hands-off one. It just really kind of ignited, like, this is what I can do other than just sitting at home and being pissed off and ranting and raving, you know, to the dogs who don't give a shit because, well, they should because they're chihuahuas, you know, they could be deported. Just saying.
Thanks very much, Cheryl.
Well, I pitched to you too. I was getting to it. I just had to do a shout out to my dogs. It was a release for me. And so, yeah, so it was an easy decision for me. And there are times where it's like, I do worry though that, because again, we're only fucking 7 months into this, that there's going to be like this, you know, this protest fatigue, where it's just like, I think,
I'm sorry for interrupting, but it got to a point where, you know, that constant cycle of fuckery and just, you know, seeing how corrupt the corruption, the blatant illegality and unconstitutionality, you know, seeing our Constitution being, you know, ripped up, set on fire, and pissed on by the President of the United States and those in his party. It got me to a point in my head and mentally, I just thought I have to switch off every once in a while because it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking sometimes when I see what's happening. And so I would have to switch off. So I have to put that in just to say that. You know, it's just like,
yeah, and I do that too. I cannot watch. What my way of dealing with it, I've learned to figure this out, is to watch creators on different platforms that I trust, not just, you know, the you know, we hate Trump, let's all hate Trump, you know, the actual ones who are giving you true information. I still do most of the time. I'll go out and fact check them myself because I just don't take anybody at their word anymore. But how I learn about a lot of the major things is I watch them. And they report on it. There's a couple like TikTokers who they watch the daily briefings from the White House, who watch, you know, every one of his live speeches. And then they give a synopsis and they show clips. So I know they're not lying because I see it in their words. But to watch a full whatever about it, it's too much. I can't. And I told Rabbit that, like, I do not make enough money to keep buying phones, so I can't watch that stuff because I get infuriated. My blood pressure and then I realize I'm just in a fucking foul mood for no reason all day because I've just ingested all this negativity. And so that's how I kind of do it. And then there are times, and I've also told Rabbit this too, sometimes I just don't want anything to do with any of it, so I'll purposely, TikTok is really fucked up, but it's also really easy to change your algorithm. So you search up, you know, cute puppies or you know, pygmy cows and cute little baby dogs, and then all of a sudden your algorithm changes. So sometimes I'll do that. I just need to check out. But the thing that for me, and I can't say this for everybody, but for me going to these protests, it really does kind of re-inject me with, like, the world is not a bad place. I walk away not just feeling, because, you know, being around hundreds and thousands of people that are like-minded, is always uplifting. But you get to talk to people and you learn about people, like the interview that you showed with Christopher. Like, that guy's friggin' awesome. And and then saw him at the other protest, then saw him down when we did the flag. And there were a bunch when we were at the one yesterday morning at the gate. There was probably only about, like I said, 20 or 30 of us, and we all just like, family reunion. And then we were all running across each other at the second protest, like, oh, hey. And my sister was like, do you know her? I'm like, well, as of this morning, I do.
She's my protest friend. I like that.
Right. It's like, yeah, you walk away with a whole bunch of new BFFs, and you just, yeah. I walk away feeling really energized, like, yes, we can do this. It's going to be painful. It's going to hurt. There's going to be a lot of bad days, of bad things, but we got this, as a collective group. It feels good. So that's part of the other reason why I do like to do them, because it helps me. I think Rabbit has an interview. I want to tell you two quick stories. Yesterday, again, at the gate, I'm just differentiating it so it makes sense in my brain. There was quite a few reporters there, not as many as there was the night before. By the way, I got interviewed by so many freaking countries. It's so weird. It was so bizarre. But anyways, there were a few reporters there, and this guy was going around talking to people. And, he came up to me and he asked if he could talk to me for a minute. And I was like, yeah, sure. So he introduced himself. He's a Ukrainian journalist. I don't know how to explain it. He doesn't work for a newspaper. He does his own journalism. He uses social media. He's kind of like the Midas Touch or Aaron Parnas, that kind of a journalist. He's not backed by any major news corporation. And he's got a really pretty big, I don't know, like 35, 40,000 on Facebook and on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. So he said, he's been posting a lot about what's going on. His Ukrainian people were like, just loving it, thanking the Alaskans for doing what they're doing. And he said that he had talked to his mom. Did I ever tell you this story? It sounds familiar. He had talked to his mom, and he said he was sending her pictures, ones that he wasn't necessarily posting. And he said she was just crying. She was very emotional. And he said that she told me to make sure to thank as many Alaskans as he could for standing up for Ukraine. And while he's telling me this, he's trying not to cry. It was a really touching thing. And I was then trying not to cry. And, those of you that know me, crying's not one of the top 10 things that I normally do. But yeah, it was pretty emotional. There was also another time really quick when we were walking to the park strip to do the flag. There was a younger girl, 2025. We heard her, she was talking to another woman, and she says, I'm Ukrainian, and I just want to say thank you. And she said something, how much it meant to her. I could not hear what the other woman said back to her. But then when I turned around, because I just kind of kept walking, when I turned around, they were hugging, and this young girl's, I could see her face because she was just bawling, right? So to me, again, the protests may not change the world tomorrow, but little things can make a difference. Yes, these protests, I think they made a difference for us. It made a difference for a lot of Ukrainians. When we go out and we do protests, I have had people who, thought Trump was the savior. And now they're starting to come out a little bit more. Again, they're not normally vocal, but you can tell who used to be a Trump supporter and who isn't by the certain things they say. They're starting to come out. So when they see this, because every time there's a protest here in Anchorage, it makes the news because we don't have a lot of shit going on here. So, I think for some people, it makes them go, so what is going on? Why are all these people going out on a sunny Saturday during king salmon fishing, and what the hell, So maybe they take the time to look it up, and little things, like remember I used to say, Sam, all the time, like, you can't boil the ocean, so you got to just start with one cup at a time. So every time we do something, I think we are making a difference to at least some people. Absolutely. If nothing else, it makes a difference to me. It re-energizes me. I feel good, except for today. Like I was telling you, I literally feel friggin' hungover. But it was a whirlwind 24 hours after I got home yesterday and they had left, because I live, just so everybody knows, I live literally a mile from the tarmac of the Air Force Base. So every time a jet, anything takes off, or I can see it and I can hear it. So we're watching live and we're seeing, oh, okay, they're boarding the plane. Oh, the plane's been. Well, they ended up going the flight. They left the opposite way, which I can't see. But anyways, I could hear them. So God, where was I going with this? So then I was all done. Everything's done. And then I'm starting to watch the videos about what actually happened, because I was at the protest. I wasn't seeing what was happening with this meeting. And I couldn't even formulate words. I was trying to talk to Rabbit. I'm like, because he was asking me, I'm like, I don't know. It's like, I haven't even had time to digest this. Like, it's just been a whirlwind. And today I woke up literally feeling hungover, but without any of the regrets that I usually had when I went out drinking. So that was nice. So going back, I think Rabbit has. I at the one at the gate yesterday morning. There was this girl there, and she was by herself. She had 3 flags. I did not recognize 2 of them. So McKenna, again, just started talking to her. I don't know how they started talking. I'm standing there and I kind of listened and I'm like, oh, do you mind if I record you? And so she's like, yeah, sure. So it's just this really quick little blurb about what this one person decided to do. And this is why, the protest she came to do, she had a mission to come here yesterday. And there was a lot she talked about. I didn't record the whole thing, but she was a little surprised that there were so many protests going on in Anchorage. She was pleasantly surprised. She was very happy. She didn't expect that as much. So again, protests, good things. Did I send you that?
Yeah, I've got it queued up, Cheryl.
Okay.
She's from.
Before you play that, I just want to say again that I'm proud of you, Cheryl, and I want to thank you both for having this conversation. And I want to thank you for having me up and being a part of it. So, but with that, I'm going to step down and I'm going to listen to the rest of y'all, but I'll be in the chat. But thanks for having me up, guys, and I'll be watching.
Thank you for coming. Love you, girl.
Bye, Rabies. Bye, Cheryl.
Bye.
All right, so this girl's from Siberia, right? Which is actually Russia. I don't know if she was born in Siberia, but she said
no. She says she's an indigenous Siberian and she's from there. So I just assumed yes.
Okay. But she says York City, but I think she means New York, right?
Yeah, she's from she lives in New York.
Got you. Okay.
He can have his own country. He doesn't need to take back anyone else.
So can you say again where you're from?
I am an indigenous Siberian.
Okay.
And I live in New York City. My ethnicity is called Buryat, so I'm a Buryat American, and I came here from New York City specifically for this event. I brought 3 flags: a flag of Ukraine, of Siberian Republic, where I was born, and of Buryatia. And this is to tell Putin, Ukraine is not yours, but neither is Siberia or Buryatia.
Yeah, nice. So are you going to be going to all the events today too? Like the one downtown?
Yes,
okay, nice. How long are you going to be here in Alaska?
Until tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay, well, welcome.
Yep.
Welcome. And I didn't get the part where she said she came by herself. She didn't have, any friends or anybody. She just, as soon as she heard about it, she booked a ticket. I did ask her about her lodging because, like I said, the lodging here in Alaska was pretty tough, especially once it happened. Any spare room I think the media got, but she was able to. She said she rented a B&B, an Airbnb. So yeah, that's how passionate she felt about it. She flew from New York to Alaska by herself, kind of thinking there might be a good chance that she's going to be the only one standing somewhere, coming to a town that she knows nothing about, but she just felt compelled to be here.
Do you know what's great about it, right? Is that like once upon a time in the 1960s and 1970s, like that kind of passion and drive and mentality was kind of widespread, right? Because
Yeah,
people really
yeah,
did feel like they could change the world back then, especially with the, um, eventually the Cold War ending and things like that. But
yeah.
there was a real notion that your voice really is that important, and I
But I
think
think
for
sorry, go ahead.
on you go.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think we've gotten away from that. It's
That's
it's
what I was
just so
going to
much,
say. Yeah.
yeah, it's so much easier. You think you can make a posting online, putting comment, and people don't know an airline ticket from the other side of the friggin' country all the way to Alaska. You're talking at least $1,500, if not more, because I haven't checked on airfares, but I know every time I go to DC, they're like $1,800. So, and that's without the 2 week advance. So I don't know how much it cost her.
Yeah.
I think if anything, having having Trump be our president has kind of changed that. People are coming out where before they just bitched and pissed and moaned on social media, but they realize there's got to be more to this. And maybe her being from Siberia, they have a different mentality, but I think for Americans, especially the whole protest thing, that was kind of looked more at like a hippie thing, where maybe it's not anymore. When I was in DC, I saw a lot of signs at that protest, the hands off. There were so many people. Like, I protested this shit, X amount of years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, didn't think I'd be doing it again, stuff like that. So, there's the professional protesters, but it's good to see that people are not just thinking they're going to make a difference by making posts on social media and things like that, that they're actually coming out and doing things. And that's the other thing that I've learned about protests, especially the anti-Trump ones. Not everybody's there for the same reason. Everybody has their own reason for not liking what he's doing. Sometimes it still kind of baffles me that why this doesn't bother you, but this bothers you. But it doesn't matter. I mean, we're there for the general same reason, but everybody has their own personal reasons. And like what Sam was just saying about, her daughter, what's the world going to look like? So I think for a lot of us, it's not about just the here and now. It's how it's going to affect generations down the line, or even up the line. Again, with the Social Security and the Medicare, there's so many people my age who are just worried sick about their parents who, could lose their Social Security or are currently losing their Medicare and their Medicaid. Like I said, everybody goes to a protest for their own personal reasons. And, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. People just, that's what I tell people. It just show up. Just show up. There was, I think I talked about this before. There was a lady in Bettles, Alaska. You can Google that. It's just some little spot in the middle of nowhere, Alaska, a very small town. And it's not because it's red. It's just because, especially when you live off the road system in Alaska, which a lot of our villages are, people tend to not get so immersed in that big city stuff. They can have their opinions, but that kind of stuff's that's what big cities do, like the people in big city Anchorage. It's kind of funny. So anyways, this woman, she has a van, she has a trailer, she has 2 huskies, she's got speakers on her van, she decorates her van. It's covered with these huge signs, FDT and all the things. She goes out by the airport. When I say airport, it's a small plane airport, and it's not an airport. It's just a dirt road where the small planes land. She blasts her music. Sometimes she brings her little cornhole. You guys know what that is, right? The cornhole game. And it's a board that has a hole in it. You take these little bean bags, you stand back and you try to get your bean bags into the little hole.
Okay.
Yeah. she sits out there, she plays her music, she makes some TikToks, you know, that's her way of protesting. There's another kid on TikTok that I follow. I'm pretty sure he's from Unalaska. He did a video for the last protest, and there was very few people there because there's very few people in Unalaska, but he was pretty impressed. He wasn't the only one. So there are people who are showing up where, especially in rural Alaska, they probably wouldn't at some time. Like, they'd just be like, again, that's big city people do stuff like that. We don't do that. We just, you know, take care of our dogs.
You know what? Just thinking about it now, I wonder if there'll be much going on in Washington. I presume it's Washington. He's meeting Zelensky on Monday, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I was walking through the living room. There's been protests going on in Washington every single day because Trump has taken over Washington, D.C. He's brought in the National Guard, and he's taken control of Washington, D.C., claiming that that the crime rate in Washington, D.C. is through the roof. It's like something never seen before bullshit. A really quick Google search will show you that the crime rates in Washington, D.C. has gone down substantially from what it was, you know, years ago. But it's just another practice run for him. You know, everybody has their speculations on what he's doing and why he's doing it, and I think most of them are spot on. So there has been protests in DC every day, and I have no doubt that there'll be another big one. Hopefully it'll be a big, you know, support Ukraine for Zelensky to see. I really would like him to see, I know, because, you know, he's the president of a man being invaded. He's a little busy fighting a war. But he probably doesn't check social media, but, you know, on his motorcade through Washington, D.C., I messaged my friend in D.C. this morning. I'm like, you know what? I would give anything to be there right now. I will UPS you my Ukrainian flag if you would promise to go. Again, she's kind of in that awkward position being a government employee, but I get it. Being on that motorcade, I hope DC shows up and they line up that friggin' street. Just like, you know, what we did to show him the support.
Yeah, I just hope there's enough Americans out there that understand what's at risk here, you know, in terms of the argument that this could be the end of the West, pretty much.
Yeah.
Just play out the consequences of there being a deal that sits well with Putin. A deal that sits well with Putin would be Ukraine, to all intents and purposes, being destroyed, losing a third of their territory or whatever, in an understanding and an agreement that Ukraine can never ever join the EU or NATO, right? Putin is holding out for that because he holds all the cards, because Trump, like we were discussing the other day, has no hand to play because he's already shown the world that he's on Putin's side and he's not happy with Zelensky and with Ukraine. He even went as far as accusing Ukraine of starting the damn war, right?
Yeah.
So how can
you... And our president has publicly said multiple times, and then of course last night made me so disgusted. My fucking senator said, well, you know, it takes two to cause a war. No, it doesn't. That's why it's called an invasion. It doesn't, you know, that's like saying that, you know, somebody breaks into your house. Well, it kind of might have been your fault because you had a door. And they came through the door, or you had a window, and, you know, if you didn't have the window, they wouldn't have been able to invade your house. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous.
It's insane. I mean, this all because Putin has like an imperialistic outlook on the world and genuinely desires the Russian Empire, not communism, but the Russian Empire, right?
Yep.
And he argues that Ukrainians are basically just Russians, and there's a large minority in Ukraine that speak Russian and actually identify as being Russian. That's all true, right? But
Yeah.
collectively, they democratically made a decision. Okay, so
Yeah.
you don't resolve, like, if you want to like advocate for more rights for the Russian speaking Ukrainians, that's one thing to do, right? But you don't resolve that issue by breaking international law and invading a country.
Well,
And
you do, because it
well,
works.
you
Because
apparently,
what have been the repercussions? See, that's the thing. It's also setting a precedent. What has been the repercussions of this? Nothing. Not a fucking thing. In fact, not only is it nothing, but for the first time in history, a Russian president is going to come to the United States, and we are literally going to roll out the red carpet. Like, they literally paid, our United States Army or United States Air Force, whoever did it. I think it was Army because it looked like it was airborne. That rolling out a fucking red carpet
right?
for this international war criminal to walk on, and he gets a handshake. And there are so many things we can even talk about, like when they did the news conference, he talked first, didn't he? He also, like you said, he wrote in the president's limb. So what are the repercussions of being a nasty, horrible dictator who wants to take over the world like Pinky in the Brain? What are the repercussions? Not a fucking thing, at least as long as Trump is president.
There's bad repercussions. Every bampot, despot, authoritarian regime in the world is going to see that you can redraw borders.
Exactly. Well, look at Trump. Like I said, he came in running. He's going to take Greenland you can sell it, but if you don't know what's going to happen. But we're going to get Greenland. Then he does all this shit with Canada. He tried to do what Putin's doing. He was testing the waters to see how much pushback he would get, right?
It's great to see that he did get pushback from Canadians, though.
Oh my God.
Go Canada.
We've talked about this before, like as an Alaskan, we really feel closer to Canada, than we do our own people, not just because of geography, but yes. Yeah. We talked about this when was it the hockey game right after all that shit happened, and they played the national anthem and everybody was booing. Yes, that stung. As an American, that stung. But on the other hand, I get it. I mean, like I said, if somebody were threatening my country, would I be happy about their national anthem? No, I wouldn't. And the Canadians, of course, in Canadian fashion, because they're so fucking awesome, they made sure to, like, all social media, again, going, just so you know, we don't hate the Americans, which, I'm sure some do, and probably rightfully so. We don't hate the Americans. We just hate your president. And it's like, we get it. They've made so many other deals with other countries, because of course Trump thought he had, like, you guys need us for this and you need us for this, so we're going to slap these tariffs on. And Canada went, okay, hold my beer. And they went out and they found other countries to get a lot of their supplies from. So God bless Canada. There was a lot of talk, because a lot of countries ended up backing down to him. Like, they stood up, but then they're like, and then he pushed back and they're like, okay, all right, whatever. God bless Canada. Every time I saw something, I was constantly posting, oh, please stand strong. As an American, we need you to stand. We need to feel the pain. We need to get our asses kicked. We hate it because we the people are going to suffer. But the only way to stop this man from running rampant is for other countries to stand up to him. It's going to hurt us in the long run. Like I was telling you, my coffee's gone up 50%. No, 100%. Went from $9.99 to $19.99. Yes, I'm feeling it, but it has to be done.
You ask me a lot. And I think you speak for a lot of Americans. You're kind of worried about how the outside world sees us over here in the States. But I get a sense there's a feeling of kind of shame or embarrassment, right? And it's kind of funny because obviously a lot of things I say myself, are highly critical of like US
Yeah.
policy. But
Yeah.
like I've told you like many times, I kind of feel half American myself, like ideologically. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think I, I'm someone that just loves what America traditionally has always stood for. The, everything, you know, that's embedded within the Constitution. It's the closest um, system that we've come up with in the world for the ideal kind of culture and society and mentality. And that's with all the mistakes that have been made, you know? Um, so it's probably why I kind of feel half entitled to be critical, right? But you kind of have to be. You have to just be honest.
Yeah. And yes, embarrassment. Kind of like what Chris was saying. If you were going to say something to the rest of what would you say? And I'm sorry. Um, it's an embarrassment. It's shameful. It's not how we perceive ourselves as a country. He definitely does. He represents everything that a lot of us absolutely despise in humanity in general. And to know that, because I was like that the first time he was, I really wasn't even paying that much attention back then, but I would watch the news and stuff and they were showing his tweets. I'm like, that can't be real. Like, the president of the United States does not get up there and call a senator from another, like, a fat slob. Presidents don't talk like that. They don't. No, they do. They fucking do. Which my friend and I, the one that lives in DC, we were talking the other day, like, how, the first time it was just like, what is happening? Like, this is like a bad fever dream, right? And then we get Biden in there and things go back to normal. Normal in the way of how as a president presents himself. Like, there were no weird tweets talking about somebody's looks or things like that. It was like, it's horrible that it felt refreshing to have a president who didn't say or act the way he did, but really it shouldn't be. He should be the anomaly, right? It would be like, wow, it's so good, things are back to normal. But no, it was like, this is kind of refreshing that we don't have to watch the news every night to find out what our fucking president has said. This time he's on steroids. I mean, because he's got nothing left to lose. He's 79 years old. He's out of shape. Clearly he has health issues that they don't want us to know about. And then that pesky little part about the Constitution where, he can't run for more than 2 terms. He's got nothing to fucking lose. He's literally saying all the shit that he alluded to the first time. Now he's just out there. He's got nothing left to lose.
And he wants to swindle the world out of a Nobel Peace Prize as well.
Yeah, I mean, I saw somebody post something the other day that says if he gets the Nobel Peace Prize, that's just proof that everything is a scam.
Everything is broken if that happens.
Yep.
Everything.
Yep.
Like, it's time to, join Elon Musk and try and,
go to Mars.
Planet. Well, we won't go to Mars because Musk's going to be there, right? We'll need to pick another planet somewhere, maybe in a different solar system.
My daughter doesn't like. We joke about death in my family. We always have, and it's not a big thing. But for some reason, I think because I actually am getting older, my daughter isn't as fond about my jokes anymore. But so she's like, stop it. But one of my things, I'm like, the best part about being the age that I am, because of my health, I don't have health problems, but because, family history of things in my family, like, I'm looking at 20, 25 years max, really, at this point, if I'm lucky. So, yeah, I got that. So at least I don't have to worry about the ramifications too much longer. That's the only thing I can think of I have going for me.
Unless reincarnation's a thing.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm going to opt out of that option.
You're just going to opt out of that one.
Unless I can other planet, another solar system, another universe. I don't know. It just, do you want to go back to Earth? Oh, fuck no. No. Hell no.
Okay, I think this
Or
is the
send me back
perfect
as a
time.
bug.
Right. I think this is the perfect time to play this clip from Obama. I think it just underlines everything you were just saying, actually.
Okay.
If I had done any of this, let me just, I just want to be clear about this. Imagine that. Imagine if I had pulled Fox News' credentials from the White House press corps. You're laughing, but no, this is what's happening. Imagine if I'd said to law firms that were representing parties that were upset with policies my administration had initiated, that you will not be allowed into government buildings. We will punish you economically for dissenting from the Affordable Care Act or the Iran deal. We will ferret out students who protest against my policies. It's unimaginable that the same parties that are silent now would have tolerated behavior like that from me or a whole bunch of my predecessors. So, and I say this not on a partisan basis. This has to do with something more precious, which is, who are we as a country and what values do we stand for?
I mean, no matter your politics, like, how could anyone deny that there is integrity there, which is so evidently lacking in someone like Trump, right? It's almost comical to make that point because it seems so obvious. I mean,
Yeah.
Trump's motivations for this whole apparent bartering between Zelensky and Putin could just as well be motivated by the fact he just personally doesn't like Zelensky, or because Biden's laptop was in Ukraine and he has all these conspiracy theories about the laptop, and he admires Putin because he thinks he's a badass in a kind of Goodfellas kind of way.
Yeah. Yep.
There's more chance that aligns with his true motivations than anything ideological or ethical or
he wants to be Putin. Because in his mind, the obedience that is forced the Russian people and the Russian government, the obedience that Putin forces upon them, Trump looks at as respect. So that's the difference. Some people people want to be respected. You want to be respected for your views and your whatevers. Trump, if you don't respect him, he's going to make you respect him, which we all know that's not true respect. That's fear, right? Putin is everything he wants. He wants, and that's where the problem comes in, because Putin's like, for a fact he doesn't respect him. He doesn't respect him at all. But he wants to be Putin. I don't know enough to know what his opinions about Zelensky and why he hates him, other than the fact that he will cozy up to Putin every chance he gets, because for some weird reason, it's not weird, there's a lot of conspiracies, he knows Putin is above him. Now, in his mind, does he want Putin to fall out so he can take that #1 dictator place? But again, conspiracies, what does Putin have on him? Well, I think Putin has a lot on him, to tell you the truth. But I think his outwardly disdain for Zelensky is more of a show to Putin to show, look, I'm your lapdog. I'll never bow down to that man. So you have to. So anytime Putin tries to puff up on him, he's like, look, I did all this for you. Look, please, it's some weird, twisted domestic violence, toxic relationship that these two have. And it's horrible that he's our president, even though I don't consider him president, never will. But yeah, and back when Obama was president, because you and I have talked about, like, I really don't know much. I'll willingly admit, back in those days, I was so ignorant to what was going on. I was one of those people who's like, I just dealt with what was in my little bubble. I didn't pay attention to politics. I didn't, it was on the news and I heard it, but I didn't pay attention to it. I never fully appreciated Obama until long after he was gone. I did appreciate the fact that, he was a person of color. Again, moving that one step further for the United States. Just again, kind of, naively, when Kamala won, I remember people going, why are you so happy that she's there? Do you know what she's done? I'm like, actually, no, I really don't. I don't. And in my ignorant kind of way, I don't give a fuck. First off, she's a woman. Second up, she's a Black woman, and she's the vice president of the United States. This is 2020, and we have never had a woman in office at that level, ever. In the United States, one of the most advanced countries in the world, where other countries have had women leaders, for hundreds of years. I was just happy she was there. I was happy when Obama won because of that fact alone, but I never appreciated where he took our country, what he did for our country. I just wasn't aware of it. I've, obviously have come aware of it, but.
Yeah, well.
That's also another thing over here. If Trump does change the Constitution where they're not termed out at 2 terms, there's a lot of time. Like, okay, cool, it's on. We're bringing Obama back. Trying to see Trump win against Obama. I don't.
Right. Yeah, good point. Actually, yeah. Wow,
yeah.
That'd be
like
interesting.
If you can run for more than 2 terms, we got Obama. Cue him up. We're ready to go. So there's maybe that. There's maybe that.
All right, just to wrap this up, despite it all, despite the gloomy theme here, I don't think all is lost. We're obviously concentrating on the dangers and the potential consequences, but I still feel there's a reasonable chance the good people will win out here. The good will out in the end. I still believe the large majority of Americans don't align with what Trumpism has become and what it now stands for. I really believe that, and I think eventually that will come to pass. And hopefully the West is still worth saving in the end when it comes down to it. But it's going to have to happen, and just like you say, everyone's voice is important. It's like the butterfly flapping his wing. Like the protest in Anchorage has an impact, and everyone can just do their own little bit, whatever sphere it is. Like whether it's on a YouTube live like this, everyone can affect things incrementally themselves.
I just want to add really quick. I said, my sister went to her first protest yesterday, and of course, I'm like, so what'd you think? And she really liked it. She's very introverted, but I caught her just randomly talking to people, and she really liked it. My son-in-law, who is half Colombian, he had never gone to any protests. In fact, he was one of the major. He was when there were certain protests, he did not want Cole to attend, like the ones this weekend, because he just felt it's just too volatile. Well, he went to his first protest Thursday night. That one, the first one for supporting Ukraine. And he admitted he really liked it. And yeah, it wasn't what he thought it was. But I also admit a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm not telling everybody get out and protest. What I like to do is tell people to encourage them, especially because social media is a big thing. Everybody's on social media in some way or another. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, Facebook. There are things, because this is what I was telling my sister. She's like, I just don't feel comfortable going, but I feel like I'm not doing anything. There are other things that can be done. Writing, when I say writing nowadays, I mean emailing your state representatives. Another thing that's a really big thing is if you're watching things or reading things on social media that align with your beliefs, you can like them, you can share them, or just comment on them. And that helps the algorithms to push out the information in those messages, those videos, those posts and things like that. So I just try to encourage people, like, if you're feeling strongly about it, you don't have to protest. I know that's not everybody's thing. So there's just other things you can do. And there's other things. You can donate to some of the groups. Like, again, here in Anchorage, one of our big ones is Stand Up Alaska. You can donate. And I'm not even talking about money. They hand out water. They hand out fruit, especially, during this past summer when we've kind of been pretty warm. They have water and fruit, and they buy, different little, signs and print out things. Like yesterday, they had a bunch of printouts of the Ukrainian flag for people, so you can, donate things like that. Donate a case of water you get at Costco, something like that, just something to make you feel like you're involved, because I read a lot where people feel like I just feel useless because I'm not going to protest. I want to, but blah, blah. So there are other things you can do besides, standing there ringing a cowbell all day long.
You don't have to have a cowbell.
No, but if you do have a cowbell, that's better, because the more noise, the better. But
all right.
So I just wanted to say that people, there are other things you can do. Don't feel like you have to go out and protest. But obviously, if you feel inclined, if you don't want to go by yourself, there's so many other groups you can just message in there. I've had people do that. I've seen people do that. Like, I just don't want to go by myself, and before I even get a chance to, by the time I read it, people are like, oh, here, I'll meet you here and we'll go together, that kind of a thing. So just putting that out there.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks, Sam, for coming up. It was interesting to hear her perspective. Again, her coming from Texas too, which is the other hot state right now in the United States. So it was really good to hear her perspective from looking at the U.S. from the outside.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. That was a really interesting extra dimension to add to this. It was especially interesting for me to hear her thoughts on what's happening in the UK. In one sense, quite jarring that it's obvious as well to her. That tells me a lot, not in a good way, but it is what it is. But yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks to guys that were in here earlier. And if you're watching this after the live and you're still here, well done. Fair play to you. Thanks for sticking with us, right?
Yeah.
I probably need to put more effort into resuscitating this channel. So we'll need to do more lives more frequently, I think, Cheryl. And it won't all be
and they don't. I was just going to say, they don't all have to be about this, because, I mean, this was important to talk about, especially for me. It's very personal. But, sometimes just get another true crime, something else.
Something more cheery, like murder and mayhem. Why not, right?
Like a serial killer. That brings me happiness. No, I'm just kidding. But, yeah, I would love to do more lives. Not all about this.
Yeah, ditto, for sure. Donald Adelson's coming up, Cheryl.
Yeah, I know.
That could catch my attention.
I mean, we do still need to talk about Sarah Boone, but you know, that could be a side note. It
Well,
doesn't have to be a
let's
whole
do
lot,
that.
but
Let's do that then.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. The other day I said let's table that, and over there you were telling me that doesn't mean what I think it means, right? Put a pin in
Right.
it.
When you table something over here, it's just kind of like, let's just push that over. That's just no. What we say is we'll put a pin in it, which means we'll come back
Okay.
to it.
Right. So let's
Yeah.
not table Sarah Boone. Let's put a pin in her. I'm sure you'd love to put a lot of pins in her. But,
While she's closed up in a suitcase, that would be awesome.
right. And by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, Sarah Boone legitimately is refusing to disappear entirely. She's still trying to get an appeal. You know, get some
Yeah,
legs. So
she's got nothing but time, so she's gonna be around fucking forever because she got nothing better to do.
and it could be an interesting conversation actually, because despite it all, despite discovering the depths to which this horrendous personality actually resides, I still actually think it's the wrong charge. So
That's all right. That's
that could
okay.
be interesting, couldn't it?
Yeah,
That
you can be
conversation?
wrong. We'll let you be wrong, but yeah,
Right.
we'll have to discuss all that. Sarah Boone, Adelson, yes.
Well, I've made a YouTube career out of being wrong, so
Well, there you go.
nothing changes.
You're still hitting your target goal. Good job.
All right, guys. Good night. See you soon.
Good night. Bye.